Welcome to Mommy's on a Call, your sacred space to laugh, learn, and feel like a real grown-up human for a hot minute. I'm Stephanie Uchima Carney, a mom of 3 under 6, serial entrepreneur, business strategist, and donut connoisseur, just trying to get through the day one cold cup of coffee at a time. I believe that with more intention, a positive mindset, and self-care, it is possible to thrive in motherhood, business, and life. My mission is to uncover the daily rituals, life lessons, real-life tactics, and favorite tools to inspire and empower you, mommy, to get the most out of life every single unpredictable day. So grab your headphones, tell your kids you're on the potty, and tune in weekly for some laughs, knowledge bombs, and plenty of real talk with real moms, and maybe a dad or two. Welcome to the Mommy Pod. Welcome back to Mommy's on a Call. Today, I'm excited to bring on a friend of mine who focuses on integrative nutrition and is a health coach, Uma Naralkar. I'm really excited to have you on because we're doing this entire wellness series this month and just preparing for the new year and talking about everything going on right now, especially with COVID and just trying to stay the healthiest possible. I am excited to talk to you about all the things. So welcome, Uma.
Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I'm super excited as well.
What was your biggest mom win of the week?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. And okay, I'm just going to tell you, I know this question was coming, but my son is 11, my older son, and we are in the process of applying to private school for middle school. He's in elementary school right now. And I had no idea, but that process is like applying to college.
Oh, it's insane. We had to do that for kindergarten.
I had no idea. But I believe that at least when they go to elementary school, they are not writing those essays and being interviewed. Parents do all that and they kind of just, the kids just kind of follow you. But in middle school, the kids are a big part of the process and they have to write big essays and it's mind-blowing. They take several tests and more than anything else, they're interviewed, right? So there's this whole Zoom interview. So coming back to the win, I was just so nervous about my son interviewing on Zoom. And, we went through I just went back and forth with him to make him more comfortable, but it wasn't on Zoom, right? He's seeing someone on Zoom and talking to them, but it went really well. And I felt like he was 100% himself and he was not nervous. And for the first 5 minutes, I was like hovering around, just making sure it's going to be okay. And then I kind of just let him be. And he was amazing. He was so good. He was definitely better than me for sure. And I felt so proud of him. And they made him do things that he's never done before. He took a test on Zoom. He had to write an essay and we didn't know that. So we didn't practice it. And I just feel like sometimes, when you're going through the process of parenting, you're always like, you think that your kids are not going to be able to do something or you have this, sense of nervousness. But when you see them thrive, it's just that proud moment where I was like, oh my gosh, he's so good. I didn't know he was going to be so good. So it was definitely a big win. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think we're definitely ready for college applications now.
Can you imagine that right now, doing everything on Zoom? It's so crazy to interview and be only 10 years old and interviewing.
Yeah, exactly. And he hasn't seen the schools, none of them. So it's all just, whatever he can see on Zoom.
Well, so speaking of all of that and distance learning and doing things on Zoom, how is parenting right now? What is your kind of day-to-day look like? How are you managing to run your business and do schooling and all of that? What is your family situation? Tell me about, your kids, their ages, and kind of the roles your husband and you play.
Okay, so I have to say it was challenging, way more challenging in the beginning because we started our lockdown in March and the kids have never gone back to school. And then we had quite a long summer where summer camps and everything was canceled too. So I consider all that as homeschooling. So we've evolved with it. And I think now we finally do have a system going because my husband, he's a cinematographer. So he shoots movies and commercials. And right now, most production is not happening. So he has his meetings and phone calls at home. I completely work from home, and the kids are both homeschooling. And I think the part where they are on the Zoom calls, I've decided not to try to control it. Right. So initially, I was like that mother who was like, you have to be on the call and you have to pay attention. And I just realized it's 8:30 to 2:30, at least for my older son. And it's a long time to sit there, and it's public school. So there's 30 plus kids on that Zoom call. There's not too much opportunity to ask questions. It's not very interactive because they just don't have that kind of space. So I let him take breaks when he wants, and they're not long breaks, and we've come to an understanding. And he comes outside and he either jumps on the trampoline or just sits there and gets some fresh sunlight, and then he goes back in, and he's so much better, as against me trying to push them to just sit there for those. It's like an hour and 30 minutes, and then they get a 10-minute break.
Oh, wow.
And it's back to back. So the first thing that's helped is me just backing off a little bit and giving both of them a little more space, and letting them take these short breaks when they need them, so that they're more present when they have to be on Zoom. And the space, fortunately, we do have enough space so that we can each have our own work areas. But initially, I was experiencing a lot of interruption. So they would just come in, right, and be like, "Mommy, I'm hungry. Mommy, I need this." And it's all just to say hi, and there were no boundaries. So this is going to sound so crazy, but we've created a hat system. So if I'm in a busy meeting, and if I know that they could interrupt me, I'm wearing a black hat. It's just a hat, and they know not to disturb, not to come in when I'm in that zone. And when I'm not wearing the hat, if I'm doing something that's where they can come in, then they can come in. So, and it's worked amazing. And I don't know, I think my husband came up with that idea. And I think he was just by default wearing a red hat. And they were like, oh, they didn't disturb him. And he was like, that's it. When I'm wearing the red hat, don't disturb me. And when I'm not, you can come and talk to me. So it's this weird thing that's worked out really well for us. But more than that, I think for me as a mom, or even as an individual going through just the situation, it's my morning routine, or like the first 30 minutes of my day. They just kind of influence the rest of my day. And I used to always have a morning routine, but I feel now I have to carve out that time before they wake up, because they're always here. It's not like I can, just take my time. So I make sure I put an alarm, and I'm awake 30 minutes before everyone else does. And I do my little routine so that when I'm done with it, I'm really ready for my day, right?
What time do you wake up?
So I wake up at 5:30. Actually, that's not true. My alarm rings at 5:30, and I'm actually out of bed by 5:45. So I'm kind of like lying in bed, and then I'm actually rolling out by 5:45. And then my morning routine is about 45 minutes, something like that. And I do the same exact routine every morning. It's not complicated. It's simple things like, just once I use the bathroom and come out, I just do my bed. And there's something about it. I spend like a good 5 minutes like doing my bed. And my husband he wakes up way before me, by the way.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
my husband meditates for like an hour and a half every morning. And he has a much stronger morning routine. He does pranayama, and he's been doing it for years now. Years. But I used to do like a quick thing, and then I used to do my workout and meditation after the kids went to school. But that had to shift. And now I do all that before they wake up. So I'll make sure that I do my bed, and it's like the most, I don't know, it just sets the tone for my day. Like my bed is clean and my day begins, right? And then I'll go and make myself some lemon water, and I'm just cleaning the kitchen a little bit while I'm sipping that water. Then I come in, I sit in my meditation. It's usually just about 10, 12 minutes, something like that. And just because of the way I am, I do better with like a chanting meditation, or a meditation where I have a mantra, which I'm repeating, as against a meditation that can be used for processing, which is what my husband does. Right now, the mantra that I have is, I am grateful to be here right now. That's the mantra. It can change. It can be different. but that's what I'm repeating. That's what I'm chanting. And sometimes, I don't know if you know what a rudraksh is, but I have like this necklace with beads. You can use any necklace. And, you push each bead every time you say the mantra. And it's just a cognitive thing. It helps you to stay present. So I'll do the meditation and then I'll do like light stretching or foam rolling for maybe 5 minutes. And then that's it. Then I'm out and about. I'm ready for the kids. I'm ready for whatever it is that I have to do. But that's helped me a lot, a lot.
How did you get yourself there? How did you motivate yourself to do it? Were you always like this?
I have been doing a morning routine since I had Rian. So that is for 9 years now. And I think what happened was, I'm pretty sure that in the beginning it was like a default thing, right? There were like a couple of times that it just happened that I was awake and I had like a little time in the morning, and it just felt really good to have that space. Like, I don't think there was any routine, but that space that, oh my gosh, there's like 20 minutes to myself where there's no one else disturbing me and I'm with my thoughts just here, right? And then I was like, oh, let me see how I can build on it. And my morning routine has evolved so much in the past 10 years. There was a point when I used to journal. So I would spend like 5 minutes just, it was like a brain dump, actually, not even journaling. It's like whatever comes to your mind, just putting it on a piece of paper. There was another phase where I was doing it out loud, where I was doing affirmations, saying whatever it is that was coming to my mind out loud. I also, when it's summer, right now it's getting colder, but when it's warmer outside, I spend like 5 minutes outside, just getting a little sun first thing in the morning. It's really good for circadian syncing as well. So it's evolved and changes. I just shared with you what I'm doing right now. But I honestly think, and I talk about this when I'm coaching clients a lot, that people think that needs to be this amazing, morning routine where you've meditated and done yoga and, have a gratitude practice and done it all. And it really doesn't. It could be something very simple where maybe you're making yourself like a therapeutic cup of tea and you're sitting outside in your balcony or in your backyard and sipping it, right? And then maybe you are writing down 3 things that you're grateful for. That's 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It's not a long morning routine. It's just, I feel like that little space gives your body or gets your body into that rest and digest mode or in that parasympathetic mode, which really dictates the tone of every action that you take after that throughout the day, your interaction with your children, your spouse, or whoever you're working with, all of that. I think it influences all of it.
Do you also have an evening routine where you wind down the
I do
day?
actually. I have a bedtime routine.
Ooh, what is it?
Yeah, like a little baby. I do because, and that's evolved actually quite a bit as well. The thing is that when my kids were toddlers, right, or they were 5 and below in age, they would sleep early. So they would be in bed by 8 o'clock tops. And then I would have this beautiful, 2 hour time period to do whatever I wanted, where I could actually sit in a bath and, do all the good stuff. Now my kids sleep after me. They don't sleep till like 11 and they
How
might be
old's your
dead.
youngest again?
He's 9, but my boy, so I have a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old, but they share a room right now. And I think it's a bad idea, honestly, because they love it, but they chat all night and they sleep when they want to sleep. And we've tried different ways. But for example, so my husband does, I'll come back to my bedtime routine, but my husband does a bedtime routine with them where they go in and they read a book and they do a little a body scan meditation, which is where they are lying in bed and he makes them go through their body from their head to their toe, and they do a little breath work. And it's very calm. Like you would believe that, oh, they're so exhausted, they're going to turn in now. And then we dim the lights and we walk out. And like within 5 minutes, there's a party in there.
Of
And
course.
this happens every day. This happens every day. So I don't know how effective that routine is. I'm hoping that someday, somewhere, it'll influence them. But they do it all, and then they snap back into their chitty chatty mode, and they don't sleep. Probably, definitely till 10:30 because I'm asleep at that time. So my evening routine has changed quite a bit because of that. But the 2 things that I always do are take a hot shower every night, no matter what it is. I take a hot shower and I light a candle. next to my bed. And when I light the candle, I just think of one thing that was positive, that was uplifting, that was good, that happened that day, right before I roll into my bed. And so it's not like this long routine. The other thing that we all as a family do is we switch off our phones, our televisions, as well as anything electronic after about 7. So we don't have any media after that. So the kids are intentionally either reading or we're talking to each other or they're drawing. I use that time to call family back home in India or something like that, where we're not on television at that time.
Yeah, they say a lot of that light anyway is terrible
All
for your
day,
sleep,
all
and
day.
sleep is so important to protect. So I want to start talking a little bit about health and wellness and integrative nutrition. What exactly is integrative nutrition? Because it's something that we've heard about, but many people might not know what it is.
That's a good question. And you're right. There's so much information out there. So it's important to clarify what integrative nutrition means. And if you look at nutrition, the word nutrition, people often just think of food, right? Because it's the food that you're eating that influences your outcome. And that's the way it's been traditionally seen. But with integrative nutrition, we are trying to look at nutrition in a more holistic way. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but most of the physicians, as well as RDs and nutritionists out there, are now shifting, the way they're looking at nutrition, and do understand that other factors like your stress levels and your mindset and the quality of your sleep all play a role in how you look and feel and your overall health. So that's where the word integrative nutrition comes in, because it basically means that you're trying to look at health and nutrition in a more holistic way, as against just the food element of it.
Right. And I feel like most health and wellness people talk about either, diet or either
Yeah.
exercise or mindfulness. So I love the whole bigger picture. So you specialize in digestive health, hormonal health, and fat loss. But I want to kind of tap into also just this idea of holistic health and during COVID. So kind of talk to me about what you specialize with your clients, like how you work with them. And I would love to talk about like easy things that we can add to our day to really help boost, our digestive health or boost this like hormonal balance and stuff, especially as busy moms.
Oh, I love that. So, first off, I feel that all of us are different in terms of what may work for us and, what doesn't. And I think it's important to understand that, because there's a lot of fad diets and people want to follow them because they worked on someone else, or some celebrities promoting them, or someone else did well on that diet, right? So keto, for example, there was a space when everyone was on keto, and there was paleo, and there's carnivorous diet, and I'm sure there's 20 other ones that I probably don't even know of, right? So I think the most important thing is to understand that we are all individual, and based on how we were born, let's say, right, whether we were born vaginally or whether we came out through a C-section, where we were born, what kind of environment was that, and in terms of temperature and food, as well as how we grew up and our health history, what other factors influence, where we are at right now. Did we have any disease or anything, or any pre-existing conditions? So all that will influence where you're at right now. Genetics, right? All that plays a role in your outcome. But at the end of the day, what you're eating, how much you're moving, and what you're thinking, right, are three things that are common with all human beings, right? And if we've seen, or there's so much research and so much science, that if we can manipulate these in our favor, then we start seeing positive shifts in our health, in our outcome, whether our goal is fat loss, because I work with a lot of women who are trying to lose postpartum body fat, or women who have just started putting on pounds because they're in that perimenopausal or menopausal phase where your hormones dictate your metabolism quite a bit. But that being said, even if that bio individuality exists and should be considered, what you're eating, how much you're moving, and what you're thinking are going to be your key game changers if you want to make a shift towards your health, if you want to get healthier, if you want to see something positive happen in your health.
Going back to digestive health, hormonal health, what are kind of some things that we can implement like on a day-to-day basis? Like why are there so many gut issues? I'm just thinking of myself. Like I got an endoscopy at one point because I just kept having stomach aches and they literally found nothing. And they said, you're fine. But yet I have so many issues. I have terrible allergies. And I know I was doing a lot of research at STEM. So like gut health a lot of times. And it might not just be an allergy. And same with like hormonal imbalance. I have PCOS. Like there's so many things I feel like they're wrong with me. But I know that I think it's like if you change what you're putting into your body and what you're doing, it could make a difference than going on so many different medications.
Oh, absolutely.
So I would love to learn what are some of the things like, say, you just had a baby and you have like hormonal imbalances because you just finished breastfeeding or even going into it, I had PCOS. What are some diet changes or life changes you can make that are something you can do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so gut health, digestive health, and fat retention or fat loss, right? They're pretty interconnected if you think about it. One thing influences the other, but the underlying, so it's think of it like a pyramid, okay? Imagine a pyramid, and at the base, at the bottom of that pyramid are your stress hormones. All right. So the hormones that regulate your fight or flight response or your rest and digest response, right? And those are adrenaline and cortisol, right? And after that is your thyroid hormones. And then on top of that are your reproductive hormones, okay, where we commonly know estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, all these are your reproductive hormones. So the reason why you want to look at it as a pyramid is because if the base of that pyramid is unstable, which means if you are suffering from chronic stress, which a lot of us have in our lives right now because of COVID or because of our kids being at home, but life goes on and that the reasons for chronic stress can change, but we all have it, right? We all have stress in our lives. So if you don't have a clear stress management system, and if that stress stays constant in your life, a lot of times you don't even notice it, by the way, because it just becomes a part of your life, right? So it's like every morning when you're driving to work, you feel stressed because you're in that traffic jam and everyone's honking and you're just sitting there. But guess what? You're doing it every day for 20 years. So you don't think of it as stress. Or, I have clients who go through phases in their work where 2 or 3 months are just excruciatingly stressful. And they've been at these jobs for years now. So they just consider that stress as normal. Or mom life, right? So just having kids and multiple things to coordinate and working at the same time and trying to navigate homeschooling and teenagers and all that stuff. Yes, it's a part of life and it's going to be there. But a lot of times we just kind of push our stress levels on the back burner. So these are all examples of chronic stress, which is very different from, let's say you were going to give a speech in front of 10,000 people, right? That's acute stress, which is good stress. You want to go do that and you feel that rush of adrenaline and then it dips, right? It's gone. But with chronic stress, you will see elevated levels of cortisol all the time. Okay, that's one hormone which it doesn't like just go up and dip, right? It just stays. It takes a long time for cortisol to settle down. So when that happens, it automatically disrupts that pyramid that I was talking about, and you're going to see changes in people's thyroid hormones, their metabolism, because that's what is affected by thyroid, and their reproductive hormones. So the reason why this is so important is because stress is always like, the last thing people think about. But that's one thing that you want to definitely, you want to create a stress management system. You want to try to figure out what your common stressors are, and you have to learn to identify them before you get to the point where it just is impossible to come back. And then you have to figure out ways by which you as an individual can bust through that stress better, right? Because it's different for everyone. Like for me, working out or just going out for a walk in nature is really just, it's a good stress buster. But for someone else, it might be something else. It might be journaling, it might be meditation, it might be listening to music, it might be some other art form, it might be talking to someone, right? So that's number one. And I'm talking about these because they influence everything. So even gut health, right? I'm sure you've heard of inflammation and leaky gut, right? That's when dysbiosis happens. And dysbiosis is when there is a shift in your gut microbiome, and you will see an overgrowth of the unhealthy or the bad bacteria in your colon. And that can really disrupt the lining of your digestive system and cause inflammation. We can talk about that. But stress has an influence on your gut microbiome, right? So that's number one. So stress. Okay. The second is, and these are all lifestyle changes which are pretty simple. Second is what you're eating. And in terms of that, the number one thing that can really disrupt, again, major disruptor is sugar, right? So if you're eating a diet that is high in sugar or just food that can easily get broken down into sugar, because a lot of people are like, oh, we don't even have sugar at home. We just eat white bread and we eat pasta and we eat pizza, and we eat tortillas and we eat chips and we eat fruit, but we don't have any sugar. So it's just, what is sugar, and what happens to your body on a metabolic level when food that you eat quickly gets broken down into sugar. Also, that cortisol, which is always high when you're stressed, will want you to eat more sugar because you are under stress, you are under flight or fight. You need glucose, you need energy to run away from whatever it is that you are stressed out about, right? So, sugar is the second one, and really being mindful of what contains sugar, all the different sauces and all the foods in your pantry. I mean, if right now, if you just get up and open your pantry or your fridge and take out like a bottle of ketchup or a loaf of bread or anything that is packaged and look behind it, you'll see that there's at least a couple of grams of sugar in it, right? So it's that cumulative effect of all the sugars that you're eating throughout the day that can really disrupt you on that metabolic level and shift your hormones, shift your gut health, and definitely add fat, right? Add body fat.
It's amazing to look at the back because I did a Whole30 a few times. And, so I was really conscious about all the grams of sugar that I was eating, and everything has like the ingredient in it. It's like cane sugar or some sort of type of sugar. And so it's crazy that like everything has it. So
everything has it.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the first exercise we do when we do our 10-week challenge. Everyone just gets up and goes to the fridge and pantry and gets 5 random things. And if you look at them, you can just like add up and you'd be like, oh my gosh, that's 20 grams of sugar, right? And even fruit. And I love fruit. I'm not anti-fruit. I think it's great. Anything that's whole and natural, it's really good for you. But fruit does contain fructose, which is sugar. And if you are someone who's trying to improve your metabolic health, let's say you're someone who has PCOS or type 2 diabetes or thyroid issues, right? Hashimoto's, things like that, then even fruit needs to be eaten in moderation at the right time of the day, preferably during your most active time of the day and things like that. So sugar is a big one. And it's such a wide topic, right? Because just removing table sugar and maple syrup and honey from your diet is really not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about creating meals that are really well balanced so that you are avoiding those spikes and dips in your blood sugar levels or in your insulin levels, actually, more than anything else, so that you're not damaging your digestive system and you're not disrupting your hormonal system.
You just said to eat it during your active time or like a certain window of time. Is it different for each person? Like, what is your ideal time to be eating?
For fruit?
Or yeah, fruit, any of the sugars. I know you talk a lot about intermittent fasting. I do that. I drink like a fatty coffee in the morning, but I'm pretty sure I need to stop drinking coffee because I think my adrenals are getting fatigued. But besides all that, what is kind of the ideal window that we should be eating?
Okay. So I work with a lot of clients who are fasting, and fasting is again a pretty big topic. And with fasting, I'm talking about intermittent fasting, not extended fasting. So intermittent fasting is the maximum is like 8 hours eating, and the rest is you're fasting, right? 16 hours. Anything more than that is considered extended fasting. And once you get used to the 16/8 type of fasting, if you can do it comfortably 4 to 5 times a week, then you can start experimenting with those longer extended fasts a couple of times a week. So I just want to clarify what fasting is. But in general, let's say whether you're fasting or you're not fasting, eating carbohydrates, if you're eating carbohydrates, you're either going to do it if you know that you have burned them, like if you've run like for 10 miles and come back, and then you can have like a couple of pieces of toast with your omelet or whatever, that's fine. Or during the most active part of your day. Like, for example, in India, in April and May, it's mango season, right? And mango is this beautiful fruit. It's full of fiber and it's full of nutrients, but it is really high in its glycemic index. It can really spike up your blood sugar levels. So, what I would recommend it is that either eat it right before you work out, right? Because then you're going to move and you're going to burn that out, or eat it right after you work out, because that's when you're going to have the most calorie deficit. But now, if you imagine eating that same mango for dessert after having dinner, you're eating a mango, that mango has nowhere else to go. But it will spike up your blood sugar. You will feel amazing. You will dance around your house. And then after that, you're going to crash, right? You're going to go to sleep. And that mango is going to basically get converted into glucose, then glycogen. And then in the morning, you're going to be like, oh, my tummy feels a little fluffier, right? That's exactly what happens. So I don't think and the truth is that no one can avoid eating simple carbs completely, right? So there are going to be times in your life when you're going to eat pizza, when you're going to eat pasta, when you want to want like a nice piece of bread and butter, right? We all do that. It's just if you do it a little more strategically, it's just going to serve you better. So when is really important. How much obviously is important. And I think fasting is a really great tool again for everyone, like how we were talking about stress management and sugar. Fasting was actually the third one that I was going to add to that mix, because it doesn't cost you anything, right? And it is something that most people can do unless you are pregnant, nursing, or you have some kind of underlying condition where you just cannot do it, or you've had struggles with food, like issues with eating disorders and things, then you should be mindful because that can trigger them again. But for most average people, it's a really good tool. And it doesn't have to be 16/8, right? It can be 12, 13, 14 hours of fasting. Because what it does is it trains your body to metabolically switch from using that glucose for energy to using that stored body fat for energy. And the more you do that, you're going to be able to use that fat in your body more efficiently, right? So that bulletproof coffee or that fatty coffee that you're having in the morning, that's great. And why does that work so well? Because it doesn't cause that spike in your blood sugar level. It gives you a lot of energy, because fat is the most high energy macronutrient you can have, right? So it gives you a big boost in energy. But more than that, what else does it do? It keeps you satiated, right? So you're full for a longer time and you can extend that fast for at least a couple of more hours. As against, let's say you had a few berries or some fruit, you're going to immediately, in a couple of hours or less, actually, you're going to want to have another meal.
Right. I can drink my coffee at like 8 and be okay until 11 o'clock.
Absolutely.
And fasting for 12 hours, 12 to 16 isn't that long, because if you think about it, if you eat dinner at, us with kids, like I eat dinner at like 6 p.m. or earlier, you just
Yeah.
don't have your snack at like 9 at night. You have that be your last meal. And then, if you last till 7 the next morning, that's already, 13 hours
That's
or so.
perfect. That's exactly how I recommend doing it, actually. And that's how it works best for women. Because if you do it more traditionally, which is you're eating later, right? You're not having your first meal till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you're eating till 8 or 9, and then you are not eating breakfast the next morning. And I feel that that can sometimes be too much of a hormetic stressor. You might see shifts in your period or just hormonal imbalances, which you don't want. So what you are doing actually is perfect to finish eating by 6 p.m. and then have your first meal anywhere between 12 and 16 hours, really. Right. And even if you can do a couple of days or 3 days of the 16 hours, that's really great. You don't have to do it every day. So that's an efficient tool which I recommend everyone should experiment with. 12 hours is easy. Even if you eat later, right? Let's say you're someone who has to work and you cannot eat before 8 or 9, but you can still do a 12-hour fast if you think about it. That's only 9 to 9.
Right. And so you said the top of the pyramid is the hormonal reproductive
That's
hormones.
the reproductive hormones. Yeah, these are all hormones. This is the pyramid of
Right.
hormones. But on the very tip of that pyramid sit your reproductive hormones, which means that they're the most sensitive and they're getting influenced by shifts in everything else that happens with you.
And say you do make it to that top. You've now conquered tier 1,
Yeah, you
tier 2,
stabilize
and now
everything.
now we're at the peak of the pyramid. Are there any tips that we can do to now work on, like, say you had terrible PMS or terrible cramps or things, and we've now worked on our stressors, but we're still
Yeah.
having this. Are there any shifts that we can do?
Yeah, so you will still have them. So even if, let's say, you're working on your stress management, you're working on your sleep, right? You're still going to see that throughout your cycle, you're going to see shifts in your mood, your energy levels, what you're craving to eat, right? And that's normal as long as it's not disrupting your lifestyle, because there are some women where it can get excruciating or it can get depressing, and when it starts affecting your lifestyle that way, then you need to do further investigations. But within that range of normal, you will see fluctuations throughout your cycle. What I do recommend, and which works really well for most of the women I work with, is to kind of shift the way you are eating, working out, and just your lifestyle depending on where you're at in your period. And it's so interesting, especially on the west side. Like, I live in LA and it's all go go go, right? You live in LA, and it's just this mentality of not stopping, right? You want to work out, you want to do the intermittent fasting, you want to just put a check on everything. No sugar, no alcohol, no, 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 right? And we do it 24/7, 30 days a month, if there are 30 days in the month. So if you can shift that and make adjustments based on where you're at in your cycle, and I'll just give you a simple way to look at it. Let's say your cycle is 4 weeks, right? And that may not be true for you, but this is just the most generalized way so that you have an example. So let's say day 1, when you start your period, to day 14 is the first 2 weeks of your period. And you ovulate sometime around that day 14, right? In the middle of your cycle. And then you have the last 2 weeks of your cycle, and then you start shedding and you get your period, right? So that first phase, okay, is when you are going to be more fertile, right? You're going to be ovulating. And that is the phase when you're going to see that your metabolism is going to be slower, right? And you're going to crave lesser food. You're definitely going to have more estrogens. You're going to have higher levels of energy. You're going to be able to endure harder workouts. You're going to be able to also fast for longer. And you're also mentally going to be more alert, more creative during those first 2 weeks. And then once you ovulate, you get into your luteal phase, right? And that is the phase when your estrogen will slowly start dropping, your progesterone increases, your appetite increases, you start feeling like eating more sweets or just more calories in general because your metabolism increases. right? You will see shifts in your energy levels, you'll see them drop. And that's when you should really shift your workouts to something that's a little more easy, right? So maybe yoga or walking instead of like doing a Peloton ride, right? And also paying more attention to your sleep. And you actually need 250 extra calories through those last 2 weeks. So really just respecting that and going, you don't have to eat a cookie, but you can eat an extra sweet potato maybe, or whatever that looks like for you. But that is actually the way it's meant to be. And a lot of times I think we try to fight that, right? And we try to keep going. So, and it doesn't have to be really that dramatic either, but just listening to yourself and being like, okay, I'm like 7 days away from my period. I really don't feel like doing that 6 mile run today. Maybe I'll just do a 2 mile walk, right? So that's the kind of adjustment that I feel is really helpful. And knowing that, yes, you do need those 250 extra calories, especially towards the end of the luteal phase.
That's good to know, because a lot of times people are on certain diets or things and they're like, well,
Yeah.
we can't eat more then, but your body actually needs it in order to stay balanced.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Now that we're going into 2021, and a lot of us have either been super unhealthy during quarantine or the opposite. My husband actually got in the best shape he did. But going into 2021 and thinking about, what we want to do, I know you're running a 10-day challenge. Talk to me about the women that take part in this and what the goals of this are.
Okay, so I love my 10-week challenge, and I'm not going to lie because it's really something that we created after trying and testing, and this is the sixth round of the challenge. So every round obviously gets better because we're learning from our previous experiences. And the way it works is it's a group challenge, right? And I think that's what makes it more exciting because we have women from literally all over the world come together and work together as a group for these 10 weeks. And everyone has different goals. We also have women from different age groups in the challenge. So it's not, we will have women typically between, I would say, late 20s to mid 50s. That's what typically it looks like, but it's still a pretty wide age range, and there will be different goals. So some women just want to do it because they want to brush up their pantry. They want to make sure that what they're eating is really healthy. They want to learn healthy recipes. They just want to take a challenge because they love challenges, right?
And accountability is key. I mean, I think I just did a challenge and it was a 28-day one. And honestly, if I didn't sign up or do it, I probably wouldn't, because you just push it off. You're like, oh no. But when you have that accountability,
totally.
it's
can
like,
you imagine? And then we also create accountability partners within the group. So you have a partner who you check in with, you make sure that you hold each other accountable. So so there's a lot of women who just do it for this because they want a good challenge, right? Then we have women who are doing it for fat loss. We have women who have chronic existing conditions like PCOS, PCOD, as well as type 2 diabetes or other hormonal imbalances or gut issues. And they want to really get those under control. And they want to do it in 10 weeks. So we have that. So it's a really wide range, but I would say that the challenge is for anyone who wants to make a tangible shift in how they're looking and feeling, right? So going from point A to point B with accountability, with getting to know amazing women. We have these weekly Zoom coaching calls, and they're super fun. I mean, we talk about diet and exercise and all that stuff, but they are fun. We laugh and we cry too, actually. And everyone, it's emotional sometimes, and it's at the end of it, I think there are amazing friendships made. And I think it's incredible for them, but also for me.
well, that's incredible. Where can we find that challenge?
So I will give you a link that maybe you can add.
And I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah.
Yeah, but the easiest way to do it is to visit my website. It is withatwist.com.
Which I love your name, by the way. With a twist.
I don't know how I came
so cute.
Yeah, it's withatwist.com. So if you just go to my website, you will be able to see all the information about the challenge as well as other ways that you can work with me. I also do one-on-one coaching, and I have other offers. I have a lot of free stuff there as well, workouts, recipes, and things that might interest you. So you can go and check that out.
Well, that's great. I want to wrap up with my final two questions.
Okay.
And the first one is, what is a superpower you gained once you became a mom that makes you better in business?
Wow, that's a really good question. I have to say patience. And I'm saying that in like the most positive way, because I was not a patient person, right? I wanted everything to happen yesterday. And with kids, that's one thing that can really backfire and can really make your life hard if you're constantly expecting things to happen your way quickly, right? And yeah, I don't think I learned it very early on though. Like the first couple of years were hard because I was like, why is he crying for his first haircut? Or why can't he finish the whole bottle of milk? And it was just this impatience, like, why is he not eating his vegetables or whatever it is? And I think when I learned to let go and trust the process and just trust that as long as I'm doing the things that I need to do in my role as a mother, in my role as a wife, in my role as a business owner with my clients, whatever other areas of my life, as long as I'm doing the work that I need to do, I just need to trust the process and not be so damn impatient.
I think we all need a little patience. And then lastly, what is your number one survival tip for moms right now to pretty much survive?
Yeah, I'd say create a morning routine for yourself. Just spend some time this week and experiment with different ideas, things that are doable and easy enough so that you can do them every day. And something that doesn't require too much of your time or for you to go out of your way to get it done. And then stick to it and do it for at least 21 days and see how you feel. Because it's been a game changer for me. And when I say morning routine, maybe do it for 5 minutes, maybe do it for 10 minutes, right? And if going out and getting some fresh sunlight, it can be a part of that, that's amazing. Good for
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Uma, for joining today. I learned so much and I'm
Thank
really
you.
excited to see what you do. So
Oh
thank
my God,
you.
thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Mommies on a Call. Your support means the absolute world to me. You can find the show notes for this episode and other goodies over at mommiesonacall.com. And if you enjoyed this episode or have gotten value from the podcast, I would be so grateful if you could head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and review so that we can reach and empower more moms all over the world together. Thank you so much again, Mommy Pod, and I will see you here next time.